Hello there. Let's have a little chat about how a small news story can balloon to become a major news story by the time 6 o'clock in the evening hits after that story was released, like 12 hours earlier. It's a really fascinating thing to sit down and watch because it actually showcases the power and influence of social media in today's news ecosystem. You see, back in 1988, media theorist Herman and Chomsky put forward the idea that what you see in your morning paper was most likely going to be what led the mainstream news at 6 o'clock that night. And we still kind of see that happening unless there's something catastrophic that happens during the day. What's really interesting, though, about what happened yesterday is you could watch this in real time. You see, yesterday morning about 7 o'clock, RNZ ran this story about the Hamilton East National Party candidate, Ryan Hamilton, where they'd unearthed comments from his where he was making fun of poor people, where he was anti vaccine, anti mandate, and harked back to his involvement in a June meeting of sovereign citizens where some of his fellow city councillors were issued execution writs, and he turned around and said to them, "Hey, I'm one of you guys." By 8 o'clock that morning, that story had already been shared on social media by a number of users. That was picked up at 8 o'clock by the Spinoff, who put it out to their network on their webpage. Not long after 9:30, we had it on TVNZ and Newshub and the Herald. They're all covering it. So by 10:30, when Christopher Luxon was doing his stand-up in Takapuna, the line of questioning was around Ryan Hamilton, where Luxon turned around and said himself, "You know what? I endorse this candidate. I stand by him, even though I didn't give him a heads up that the story was coming because I've known about it for a couple of days." Weird. And of course, Hamilton himself is refusing to comment, which makes the story even more of a bait for people to pay attention to, because why wouldn't he want to comment? Apparently, he was out of the country, unless he listened to people who saw him in the city. So, what we're seeing now is the story exploding. By 12 o'clock, it was number three of the stories that they were putting out there on One News for their 12 o'clock update. And if you had a look at the numbers online, it had been seen by tens of thousands of people on different social media platforms, which means that your engagement rates are getting up. By 1 o'clock, media were reaching out to other particular parties and saying, "Hey, what can you tell me about this story?" And I know that because I'm one of those parties. And then further to that, we saw even more growth come through on social media, which means by the time we hit 6 o'clock, this is a story that's got a lot of engagement already, which is what drives people to decide who's going to see what on our mainstream news. Because if people are engaged, it's much more likely to get people to tune into the news, which makes it easier to sell advertising dollars. And that's the whole ecosystem. It really does come down to more eyeballs on content. So the more a piece of content is shared and spread and seen on social media, the more likelihood it is that those news editors on our mainstream news at 6 o'clock are going to see it and think that's something people are going to engage in. And it's a really fascinating one to sit down and watch see it happen in real time.